Welcome to the Slots and Locks Show. Here is Tim and Mello.
Welcome back to Slots and Locks. I'm Tim, and this is my companion on this ride, Mello. So today we want to talk about prediction markets. Everyone's talking about it in the space between sports, politics, economics, culture. Everything kind of melds into prediction markets. They're talking about trading probabilities like stocks or props and things like that.
And I'm Mello. And the craziest part is that prediction markets have become like a real time probability API for the world. They turn information, rumors, and gut instincts into a live number that updates faster than polls or news outlets. That is why so many analysts and traders monitor these markets, even when they are not trading on them.
So let's talk about how prediction markets work. I mean, it's probably the basics we talked about in our last episode, slots and the basic mechanics of it. With every episode, when we introduce a new idea, we should talk about kind of how they work. Short kind of example is they turn like a belief into a live probability. That's a simple way of doing it. The idea is taking a contract on a real event. So let's say someone's going to win the next election, or when you think the interest rates are going to drop, or some other, Taylor Swift, when is their next concert going to be? And all these things get kind of into a place where you can make some prediction of whether something's going to happen or not.
Celebrity couple breakups. If the event happens, it settles basically on $1. If it does not, then it settles at zero. If a contract is trading at 60 cents, the market is saying there's a 60% chance it's true. Very simple. No nonsense on the pricing.
Yeah, the great part of this, they're faster in polls or faster in news because traders are committing real money. The difference between sports betting and prediction markets, you're not betting against the house. You're trading against a crowd of people. If the crowd is wrong and you're right, you get paid. So it's something around what ties into what people might overlook. Markets beats polls because traders have skin in the game. You cannot bluff a prediction without wishful thinking. This makes it fun in a way, and it sits outside of the traditional sports betting model.
The platforms handle these differently. Polymarket relies on an automated liquidity pool, which keeps prices moving but gets pushed around when things are thin. And when I say thin, I mean like the liquidity. So if there's not a whole lot of engagement. Platforms like Kalshi and Robinhood use order books, which usually settle into more stable pricing once the volume goes up. My guess will eventually see hybrid models, markets that start as pools for early action and then shift into order books once the party gets crowded.
Let's talk about Polymarket, Kalshi. I think we should give some specifics on Polymarket, Kalshi, and how they differ, and throw in Robinhood. And this other one we're going to look at in a moment, which we'll get into, is Metaculus. Did I say that right? Because I always feel like I say it wrong.
Metaculus.
There.
You almost
Okay, so Polymarket.
you have to say it twice.
Go ahead.
You almost have to say it twice.
I know when I say it the first time, it just doesn't sound right. All right, so Polymarket, it's not regulated. It's more global. It's fast. It uses crypto. It fits in the prediction model. They can launch in anything trending like sports, politics, memes, you name it, because they have lots less restrictions. So if you go to Polymarket, you're going to see a lot more options to trade than something like a Kalshi.
Yeah, it reacts instantly, almost too instantly. In creeper traders adore speed, but that speed can feel less like a sensory system and more like a hair trigger. If someone even whispers online, Polymarket already slaps a price on it. Whether the signal is meaningful or just internet noise.
Yeah, and I think with that, a lot of that too is internet noise. You got to sift through it, which is why traders are getting into this market as well. But because it's crypto and global, it sits outside of the US regulations. They can list events traditionally that someone else might not touch. So I think we should segue also into Kalshi and talk a little about that and kind of how they differ.
Well, Kalshi is basically the opposite. It's structured, regulated. Is it regulated? Institutional, almost to a fault. Their contracts stick to economics, government actions, weather, and policy. And the whole thing feels like a pocket-sized Chicago Mercantile Exchange. It's truly like the nerdy version of prediction markets, right? I mean, impressive, sure.
Yeah.
But you can shake the sense that you're trading inside a very tidy box with very firm walls.
And they tell a slightly different story. They have something called an order book, which is price movements are more precise. They're less influenced by hype. They're more influenced by data and expert traders. So imagine a VC or a stock trader or market maker going into this, it's going to be a lot more structured. So watch Mark and Kalshi side by side gives you a crazy triangulation of what's different communities believe in. You know, Polymarket, for instance, might see more wild swings, a lot less volume, versus Kalshi might be more structured and you won't see violent price swings. Not to say you wouldn't, but you may not.
Love your go ahead. I love your term crazy triangulation.
Robinhood, which has their own models, I know they've used Kalshi as well. Robinhood is similar to a stock trading app like a Charles Schwab. It's for the younger generation people I know use this trading platform that does crypto and things like that.
Robinhood is for the Z's.
I think so.
What is it?
I always mix those up.
What are they?
Is it Z's? I think it's Z's.
Yeah, it's Z, right?
Millennial.
Yeah. I think millennials are, millennials are old people now. Anyway, Robinhood is actually stepping into this arena as well. They rolled out a full market hub where anyone can trade on sports, politics, economics, whatever cultural moment is popping up. It's slick because it's Robinhood, but it's also the first time prediction markets are sitting right next to your stocks and crypto.
Nothing's going to bad happen, right?
Sounds like it's a secure future. That's for sure. Yeah. So basically what Robinhood is doing is treating it like just another asset class, which feels a little risky, a little optimistic on the innovation side, but a little risky on the am I going to have a house to live next week?
I've always said, what's the difference between investing versus gambling? There's a fine line. You can gamble in the stock market. You can trade stock options, put money in, lose it all, and people leverage. Crypto can fall into that. Prediction markets fall in that as well because the model, like you said earlier, which is 0 to 1, where you could put, if there's a 50% probability, you pay 50 cents, win $1 or lose the 50 cents. It's much riskier than buying a stock and sitting on it for 10 years. There's nuance there. But with that,
yeah, just so yeah, on that point, when you buy an option, you're not really buying a part of a company, right? You're just buying on the hope that something's going to go up or down, right?
Technically, the traditional thing when you buy one contract, it's the right to buy or sell, depending on what you're doing, buy or sell shares at a particular price. So if I bought a call contract, if you bought one call contract at $50, you have the right to buy 100 shares of stock at $50. If it goes up to $80, you've made $30 profit.
Okay.
You have the right to it, but you don't actually own the stock itself, at least at that moment.
Perfect.
Going back to Robinhood, the psychology changes on Robinhood. The trader basis is massive. Millions of normal people trade probabilities, and you're not just watching information flow, you're watching sentiment, emotion, herd behavior in real time. Now, I think there's pros and cons of that. And depending on the people, and we'll talk about it in a moment around sentiment and emotions and things like that, you could see wild swings of stuff. Let's come back to that. Another thing we really like that we're going to show something in a moment here called Metaculus. So there's one more model, and this is slightly different than the other one. This is more pure forecasting. There's no money, no trading. People are just submitting probability predictions and the platform scores. It's kind of like a community-based free play, and you can win prizes and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, you win cash prizes. And that sounds simple, but here's the kicker. Some of the best forecasters on Metaculus,
Get it right.
Consistently outperform the experts and the institutions. Forecasting is a skill, and they have built the world's best training ground for it. More importantly, they offer these tournaments for people to go in manually, which we'll do in a little bit to show you the look and feel of it. But they also have these like bot, where you actually create a bot to do a forecasting model, and they do a competition for that as well.
So Metaculus, I feel every time I say it, I'm not saying it right.
You nailed it on that one.
Fills the gap of prediction markets cannot. Long horizon questions, scientific questions, geopolitics, future tech scenarios, stuff you can't really settle with $1 contract. So it's larger, more forward looking.
Yeah, and sports bettors and traders could learn a lot from the calibration training on Metaculus. Essentially, what they're doing is they're kind of using a learned model. So it teaches you to think in probabilities instead of binaries, which is the mindset most people never develop.
So I think we should segue, if you want to screen it, it'd be a good time to maybe segue to that site. And just show a few things that are actually interesting about the site itself. If we want to show Polymarket and Kalshi or Robinhood, we could do that as well. Maybe start with Polymarket, just so we can quickly talk about how it looks on the site. It looks very similar to a trading platform. If you want to go to polymarket.com.
Oh, wow. You're changing on the fly. I don't even have an account on polymarket.com.
I know, but we can at least show it on Polymarket if you want.
So yeah, we gave you a teaser of Metaculus, so you can learn how to say it.
We'll come back.
We're back. Here's Polymarket. Wow, that looks busy, Tim.
It does, but if you compare it to DraftKings or FanDuel, there's a lot of betting odds and stuff like that. So I will say, one's sports betting, one's trading. They fall under different regulatory bodies and things like that. But here's just a quick example of how Polymarket looks. Pick something that you like here. I think is interesting.
I'm going to go with the will Netflix close Warner Brothers by the end of 26? Jeez. Yeah.
Paramount is trying to do a takeover, aren't they?
They're going, yeah. But they're never really offering any more than what's already been denied. So let's do, none of these are really that interesting. Largest company at the end of 2025, because this one's pretty much a done deal. So yeah, you click on this.
Yeah, so it's really, really simple. You have 89% say yes.
You click
That
there.
basically means.
And then you buy $10, or I guess you could buy $1. And you start off. So it's essentially akin to a high-low situation. If you want to bet $11, you'd win a whole $1.11.
Yeah, 89% is basically 89 cents to win $1.
Yeah, so
in this scenario,
literally done no differently than a sporting bet. These are very, very similar to sporting, right? In that if a ton of people go heavy on one side, it kind of adjusts the price for the other side, correct?
Yeah, Polymarket is slightly different than Kalshi, but effectively they'll move. These are algorithmic based on Polymarket. I think Kalshi is based off activity itself. I think the main difference here on prediction markets, you're not betting against the house like you would at DraftKings or FanDuel. You're betting against other people like us. You could probably beat us versus beating the house. The house is much harder to beat, and they take a transaction fee. Like we said earlier, just trades mostly crypto. So pretty straightforward. I think the other thing too is I know the regulators of real money don't allow these other types of bets. So Polymarket's on the extreme on the reg, so they offer everything. I mean, you can see at the very top, politics, sports, finance, crypto, you name it, you can trade on it. The great thing here is there's so much that if you want to trade on something, you could probably find it and find that market versus, sports betting, the traditional sports betting, the only thing you're going to see is sports, but there's some limitations on that. Like you can't, like PGCB, for instance, the regulatory body in Pennsylvania, changed some rules and you can't bet on college players and things like that because they're worried about from a regulatory standpoint. But Polymarket is on the other extreme where you do everything you want.
Polymarket's like honey badger.
Exactly. All right, so we could sit here and probably look all this, but let's switch over to Metaculus. I'm on fire with that today.
Yeah, you're getting good. The great thing about Metaculus is that it's based in Santa Cruz, California, which is pretty interesting. So essentially how this works is you set up an account. That's key. Then you pop in a tournament. There's no money. You don't ever give them any money. You pick the tournament and you play. And then at the end of this tournament, which they chose here, they'll do some kind of mathematical assessment and you'll win. The prize structure is based on here. In this case, you have a $2,500 forecasting prize and a $2,500 commenting prize, which I feel I'm probably going to win, and because my comments are top notch. And then you can, because my forecasting is definitely not going to be. And then you go in here, and then you're like, okay, great. And which one do you want to do, Tim? Do you want to do will Germany enact the Agrarrente before 2026, or do you want to do how many will reach the top the 2025 NCAA playoffs?
I think I'm probably more relevant to the NCAA college football.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure what the jury.
Hey, a learning moment for the Activente. Actrevente. Another word I can't tell. So you pop that open, and here you are, and you can kind of do your bets. So the question is, how many of the top four seeds will reach the semifinals of the 2024 NCAA college football? We are going to know this in 2 days. I think that's because it's after Saturday's games, right? Tim, how
Yep.
many are going to make the semifinals? All four?
Okay, let's talk about the four. It's Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech in that order, 1 to 4.
Okay.
Um, Looking at, I think Georgia goes in because you're going to play Ole Miss or Tulane. Ole Miss is probably going to win that, and Ole Miss is pretty good. But I think Georgia is hot right now. I think Ohio State has been one of the best teams in the country. They're playing Texas A&M or Miami. I think they'll come out of that too. So at least those two. Indiana has a tough road. Alabama, Oklahoma, they're playing each other. They're going to have to play one of the SEC teams. They're both really, really strong. But Indiana has been fantastic. Undefeated, beat Ohio State. Texas, I think, is kind of the wild card. Oregon might come out of it. If I had to predict, I would say there's probably three
Me again.
that come.
Who are the top four? Indiana, Ohio State.
Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech.
Sorry, not Ohio State. The Ohio State University. Got to be sensitive there. So, of those four, you think three. Which one do you think Tech is not going to make it?
I think Texas is probably not going to make it.
All right, I agree with you. Let's do three now, and you select this somehow. Oh yeah, you can actually do a value added thing here. Interesting. I'm going to go 0 on 0, not making it. I'll do a little bit more there, and I'm going to do 0 there. Does that make sense?
You had to beat 100%.
Oh,
Too high on
I
number three.
am. All right, fine. Just go away.
You can do all zero
Go,
if you want
go.
to.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, yeah, cool. Well, you got to give it something.
See that button right below it says auto sum to 100%. Do that.
Oh, man, look at that. Wow. Tim,
I
math.
think the one box is the sliders you type in there if you wanted to.
All right. If for any reason the number advancing is still unknown, this question will resolve. And then the great thing about this is it gives you sort of like a background information on each one, which is pretty. I'm not going to read it, but you know, do you know that?
I will say we're just randomly going through this, but think about depending on some of the stuff. There's a ton of information, ton of forecasting, ton of data you could use to get to fill all this in. And this is prize pool based, but we didn't talk about sweeps casinos and things like that. Imagine having a site where you have virtual currency. You could buy more currency and trade on different things like this, and you could create a whole site based off this. I mean, these guys could expand into something like that and find a way to monetize it. But they might have something after.
And
Was that?
there seems to be some kind of participation too. I could add a key factor. I don't know what this would do, but I mean, it gives a participant a little bit of fun. So yeah, I've done that. We've submitted our first thing. In a few shows, we'll come back and do some follow up on this. Give us an idea how well we did. Can you go back? So it seems like fun, you know, but do we have concerns?
Certainly. I guess before we jump into some of these concerns, why do these even matter? Why do prediction marks matter? They crowdsource intelligence into a single number. The number moves faster, more honestly than most traditional signals. So it's really interesting. It can probably be used in multiple different use cases across polls to trading like this into these different markets. And people are starting to use this information.
Well, I mean, yeah, and they crept up in the last election. It was actually more accurate than traditional polls were for the presidential and some of the lower down party races. But yeah, so I think at the end of the day, they introduce a new kind of hedge. I like that. That's a nice little term. Stocks and options cover financial risk, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, but prediction markets let your hedge things like weather, regulatory decisions, economic surprises, or even sports outcomes. It's a subtle but meaningful shift in how businesses, governments, and traders can manage uncertainty.
Yep. It's forecasting a skill, not a guess. With that, and something you just mentioned is some of the concerns. So let's kind of talk through those a little bit and just call it a few. There's probably many more, and love to hear your feedback
Yeah.
on. So throw many.
Yeah. And if anyone knew me back in the day of work, I was always the one who soured the goal with the concern. And I think one of the first concerns is manipulation in thin markets. A thin market is a market that doesn't have a lot of engagement. So manipulation here can act as a diagnostic. If a market jumps without reason, then the community would become cautious and start digging in for real information.
Yep, that's a good one. Another one, insider trading or insider information. Markets highlight exactly where insiders might leak, which could create problematic things. Imagine elections or government announcements, injuries, corporate decisions. You often see the price move before the news breaks. It's fascinating, but it's also a compliance challenge.
Yeah.
How do you solve
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a regulatory uncertainty. And these platforms are scaling faster than the legal framework and governments can keep up. Just like crypto, just like a lot of these innovative new things that are popping up. So, and thin markets can amplify the risk of manipulation or insider influence. The real concern is that rules could shift mid growth, disrupting the entire ecosystem, right? As it's trying to mature, which would put a lot of disbelief in this particular type of structure.
Yeah, public perception is another one. Markets do not reflect beliefs, they influence them. A candidate trading at 80%, which would be a high probability of a candidate winning, could shape voter expectations. So maybe people don't go out to vote if they see it's really high and it can be manipulated. A team trading at 90% can sway the fan narrative. It can really influence public perception. So if you have a small community of people that trade in this, so for example, Polymarket, if I had to guess, because it's probably leans more sports related, it probably leans more male and a younger audience that are probably similar to crypto as well that was trading that. But since it's a small community of people, it doesn't necessarily mean that's a representation of the entire market as a whole and beliefs as a community or a country or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. So the prediction market, which is basically a economic opinion, really, creates a feedback loop, and that feedback loop can be powerful, but it also can be messy and uninformed in a lot of ways. We're kind of at the beginning part of this. Where do you think we're going here?
It's hard to predict where we're going in the future. These have exploded over the last few years. If you see some of the valuations, I don't have the top of my head, but I was reading something the other week that almost overnight, I think Kalshi's valuation just completely skyrocketed within a month or two from the last valuation. Polymarket is going to keep innovating. Just talking about some of the ones we mentioned, they're more globally, so they have much more broad of everything you can trade in all these markets. So they're going to keep innovating, keep adding more and more markets. Kalshi will probably push more deeper into financial grade event hedging. So you're going to see a lot more traders and other people going into the Kalshi markets as well because it has a regulated format. Robinhood is probably the younger audience that has mass scale, and you're already starting to see sports bets. Sports betting platforms like DraftKings already announced something. FanDuel has announced something. I can't remember if they launched or they're very close to launching. Fanatics, I believe, just launched their predictive market. So you're seeing those that trending towards that. I think it's an opportunity for to grow their market share and to go outside of the traditional sports betting environment. So you're going to see more sports companies transitioning the prediction markets as well.
Fanatics, huh?
What do you think?
I mean,
Oh,
no, that's awesome. But where is Kalshi headquartered? Do you know?
good question.
You don't have
Don't
you don't have to know.
I think it's I want to say somewhere in the U.S. New York
New York.
is their flag.
Are they traded on the stock exchange or no?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Sorry,
I think
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. In the long run, we'll even see a global probability index that averages prices across platforms to give a single consensus view of major events. To be honest, I look at this now and I just think of remember the movie Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. I mean,
yep.
To our earlier comment about the mercantile exchange, that was actually Philadelphia. But yeah, it's just kind of
It was
it's like
oranges, right?
what's up?
And that
Frozen
he was trading oranges.
frozen orange juice.
Yeah,
Frozen orange juice futures.
yeah, we just dated ourselves.
We did, but
It's a great movie.
we did.
You haven't seen it. Great movie though.
I mean, that movie keeps giving. These will give a consensus view of major events moving forward. Yeah, I think love it or hate it, they're here to stay, and they're probably going to get much bigger.
Yeah, they're driven information, and I think the reality is they're permanent. They're not going anywhere. On a side note, two old guys, Mortimer, that are begging for money. I think they're merged between both movies, Coming to America and Trading Spaces. I think they went bankrupt in Trading Spaces, but they're also in the movie of Coming to America, and they're beggars, like two old guys begging on the streets. So it connected those two Eddie Murphy movies.
They do come back as beggars, which is a great.
Neither here
We,
nor
we should actually incorporate the dollar bet. I think that's a fantastic idea. If you
there. But I will.
if you remember,
Go ahead.
yeah, if you remember,
I could also see environments where there's like corporate risk hedging through event contracts. If they're worried about certain markets, they might hedge themselves by looking at these predictive markets. Maybe it's economic news. Let's say there's some manufacturing company and they're worried about tariffs. And then there's probably something on Polymarket. They go in there and bet that tariffs are going to happen. And so if they have one side, they risk their company on tariffs, but they're hedging themselves against tariffs. And I could definitely see corporate entities starting to do this quite a bit. So there's a lot happening. It's early days. I think this is going to scale and be hugely talked about over the coming years.
yeah. In fact, I'm trying to remember the name of the company, but there is a company that basically leases out data centers. So when companies like Facebook say they're going to build a $30 billion data center, they're not really doing it. They're actually leasing that out. There's one company, I wish I knew the name of it, but they used to be in crypto, but they're like one of the major players in this. There's like a default because they're essentially being traded like a credit default swap. You're going to have real-time prediction models for stuff like that. We'll dig a little deeper into that later. It was just really interesting, and when Tim was mentioning that last pen, I just kind of brought it to mind, front of mind, so to speak.
Yeah, and if you want to go, we can go deeper on the subject as well. We kind of wanted to start with just like high level introductory around what this is. I, I, I think there's probably legal conversations we could have around this where there's a battle between the states and regulating versus the prediction markets. The Kalshi is being regulated on the federal level. We could probably debate on that and whether sports betting or sports prediction markets should be allowed or not. So there's a lot of contention there as well. But there's probably tons of things we could talk about on this.
Do you think it's odd that in the US, where online gambling was like forbidden for so many years, and now we've just gone the polar opposite?
Yes, but it was only a matter of time. I think you could say one thing is money because it's ways to tax people that betting, just like lottery and things like that. I think the other side is people got more comfortable with certain betting and structure. And the reality, it was already happening behind the scenes in these markets. I generally subscribe to the shine a light on something like that and regulate it and put some controls around it.
Do you think because our former company was so regulated and well respected because of the regulation, you think that added into this trust? Just a thought.
Possibly. I will say there's downside of regulated markets. I mean, if you look at Polymarket, who's not regulated, they can be a lot more innovative, off a lot more markets, can do a lot more things. They moved into crypto, so they don't have to deal with the payments like visas and cash. There's a balancing act, which is probably a whole other conversation, but there's a balancing act here around how much is too much regulation.
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna go full Ayn Rand on me. Or is it? Is it Ayn Rand? I don't know.
I think everyone knows who you're talking about, so I think we're fine. Anyhow, that's it for today. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you want to hear. Love to listen. You could bring some guests onto the show as well. Talk more about prediction markets. We'll hit a few other topics in the coming podcast. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for stopping by and giving us a listen. And I think that's a wrap. Tim, do you want to say goodbye? Or do you want to say Metaculus? Metaculus. I guess not. Okay.
It's good.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thank you.